the player of Lord Bayrinth, when he joined the game, I immediately saw in his character the kind of aggressiveness that he would be bringing. Whereas the Instigator is a villain who seems to be really complex as far as his perspective on the world. You know, he's a very scientific character, so he's not really evil. He hasn't hurt anyone. You know, being erased is painless. And it is all for the purpose of his experiment. So, granted, the Instigator seems evil, but in the grand scheme of things, he's really not. But Lord Bayrinth, who, if you see his character sheet, you can tell that he's a pretty bad person. So when Lord Bayrinth joined the game, I immediately knew that he was going to have a big impact, because he's an adversary to almost anyone at this point. And looking at his character sheet, you can tell that he really is the type of character to get under someone's skin. You know, he talked a man into killing themselves. So his immediate goal was to go after the big bad guy that's currently in the game. That's what he put in his submission during when Grinfall had appeared. His goal was to go for the biggest gang and usurp their leader. The biggest villain, and usurp their leader. Which is why he was put on course to face the Instigator. He went for the Survey Day. The Survey Day is the biggest, baddest gang. Granted, they are a cult. Yo, the Survey Day was created by, or the name was created by the player of R-Type X, by the way. We had a lore contest, and that won. And a lot of what they do, as far as even the magic they use, Takena, is an amalgamation of everybody's submission during that time. The people who didn't win the name contest, I still incorporated their, and I do that a lot. So if we have lore contests, or even if I liked something that I saw that you put in the lore contest, if it doesn't win, more often than not, it will find its way into the story. Like, there's times where I'm just writing and I'll just think of one of the things that were submitted, and I'll find a way to put it in there just on the fly. Which, by the way, when I start doing live streams for my writing sessions, and I'm going to release a video about that, you'll be able, if you stop by while I'm doing a writing session live stream, stop by, chat it up, remind me of something that was submitted, or throw in your own idea, and I'll just throw it in while I'm writing live. But anyway, there's a video coming out about the live stream aspect of P&D that I'm going to start. But in regards to the Instigator and Lord Bayrinth, the Lord Bayrinth is, at least the player, he's very, very upfront about how antagonizing he wants to be. Similar to how Sand Maggot is in Cawthane, as director Slater stated, that character was very upfront, and being an antagonist of the story. And that's how Lord Bayrinth is. He's really role-playing. He just started the game, and he's not looking at ranks. He's doing what his character would do. So he's going for the gusto. He doesn't care who it is. He's going for the big bad guy. So Lord Bayrinth is on the path of pursuing the Survey Day and ultimately usurping, which is why at the time the Instigator was thrown from his, he fell from grace from the operations, his lab where he was performing his experiments, and thrown into the tank. And naturally he would want to connect with his support system. The Survey Day is a cult that he formed, a lair that exists between the people of Haven and him. So instead of, he doesn't want people to know he's performing an experiment on everyone. So he formed a cult called the Survey Day, and he taught them Takena magic, which is a type of magic he utilizes. But he presented himself as a god to these people, as well as the green gods, which were his employers. But to the Survey Day, they're gods. Like, yo, the green gods, we gotta serve them. So, the Instigator's back on the planet, and he's looking for the Survey Day after he gets out of his current situation. And we'll elaborate more on that. But anyway, Bayrinth's goal is to usurp the big baddie. So he did half of that when he got General Rasmussen out of there. Which, by the way, he talked Rasmussen into unplugging himself from the Ikermancer, which is his ultimate weakness. He's a Takena golem created by the Instigator, and he was corroding, he was decaying because the Instigator wasn't performing those updates on him. So he was weakened. It was a weakened Rasmussen, and that's why he was able, or a part of the reason why he was successfully, ousted, toppled by Lord Bayrinth, who is such a mastermind that he convinced the mastermind into working for them. And he's, Fenton Miles is an NPC created by Fenton Miles is an NPC created by one of the members of the D&D community. He is someone that was created specifically for the cult, and he was like their mouthpiece, their pope, pretty much. Well, he's been manipulated by Lord Bayrinth. See, NPCs and the characters you create, they are just used as pieces that I'll put into the story to serve any purpose. I'll keep them in the same line of the boundaries you submitted them with as best as I can. Sometimes you might be a little too specific sometimes, and I'll put them in the story to be used or to be an issue or an ally. But anyway, Fenton Miles is controlled by Lord Bayrinth, and he uses Fenton Miles to get him to the top of the Survey Day. Now, we don't even know how long Lord Bayrinth has infiltrated the Survey Day and worked himself up to the top. Doesn't matter. He's there now. So the Instigator, meanwhile, his goal is to kind of get back on his feet. He started off rough because he just landed into the city. So he was captured by anarchy. He had to get out of that situation. Sometimes you'll just be in a part of the story where I can't just skim over that. So you may be forced to stay use a story option. That's why I stated during the phase, you can choose an event, but if you are captured, or in a bind, I'll need you to do a story option just so we can flesh out exactly how you got out of that. Because other than that, I would be simulating it. I would be coming up with how, and there's so many things there's so many ways, there's so many crossroads that I don't want to necessarily choose how you would have gotten out of that situation. So I may have the character do a story option to see how you would get out of a situation. So keep that in mind if you're a character currently who is in a situation and you are going for an event. There's a whole gap of how would you go from being in this situation to showing up at the gate center, for example. So keep in mind that will be addressed in the story. So when I ask for what your goal is, and I specify goal, not your 7 things you want to do on the top of your list. I ask for one goal. That's because you may not be successful at that goal. So if your goal is to get out of jail, to get out of the cell that you're in, you'll want to spend most of your details and bullet points and space on providing details and narrative as to how you're getting out of your situation, as opposed to what you're going to do after you get out of that situation. Because if I ask you for what your primary goal is, and you tell me the things you're doing after that primary goal. What if you failed the primary goal? Then I have nothing to go off of, and then I gotta come up with what happens and what I think would happen. And that can be good or bad, because I'm assessing everything that's happening to you. So I say that to say, the Instigator, he had to get out of a situation. He broke out of the jail. He's headed to Monster Island, which is an island that's a part of Raylagar. It is to the north of Raylagar. It is an island created by the player who created Raylagar, R-Type X. This is where R-Type X's character is from. He's Raylagarian. By the way, take a look at the character creation stuff. It's revamped. I plugged in some factions. Some of those factions have perks, so players can be unaffiliated. They can start off as joining the Gate Center or the Network or the Winged Valkyries, I believe. That's a faction that a Dorinthian all-female faction, females for justice. But anyway, he's Raylagarian, and to the north of that island, where Raylagarian, like actual Raylagarian warriors, they go to this island because this island it's a crazy island. It's the island of your nightmares. There's myths. People talk about these things like it's a legend, because there are creatures on that island that your imagination can't fathom. You go to that island, you don't come out unless you are someone like R-Type X. R-Type X has trained there with his mother and his father since he was a child. But unless you're some Raylagarian warrior, you don't want to be on the island, Monster Island. And the Instigator, he has a base there. I mean, if you're going to have a base inside of the tank in case you need to go in there, you want it to be somewhere where people are not going to go or want to go, and is not something people really think about. Just like in reality, Antarctica. I should probably cut that out. But he has a base there, like there's a base in Antarctica. Anyway, but Lord Bayrinth just had his ability. It's called Farsight, and that allows him to look further into the future and get glimpses of the future, and he makes decisions based off of this. Very similar to Tempest's third eye, which is a keyword attached to his time manipulation. But it just kind of changes his time manipulation. He allocates time to see things that he might need to see to help him. It's not as strong as Lord Bayrinth's actual ability, which is Farsight, where he can just get clear glimpses of what to do next. And this is why Lord Bayrinth was at Monster Island waiting for the Instigator. Now, remember, Lord Bayrinth just thinks the Instigator is the leader of a cult. He doesn't know, because the cult doesn't even know the creator of the tank. Kind of. So he's like, okay, we're gonna wait for the Instigator to come. I'm gonna knock him off, and then this will officially be my cult, Lord Bayrinth's prophecy. So the Instigator shows up. He understands that he's being engaged by another player, because at the end of the last episode, Lord Bayrinth was, his goal was to get to the Instigator, and so he did, and that's where I left it off. So we're continuing from that. So they meet. Now, keep in mind, when you're engaging a player, because I have the game set up in events and story options. But if your characters cross paths, if you have enough information on a character and you want to engage them, I have to zero in on that. So, granted, the Instigator just hit the ground. He's actually in the tank, able to. I introduced him a certain way. Now he's free to do what he wants to do. He had to break out of jail, and that was supposed to be the point where, next phase, he can do an event. If he wants to, he can do whatever he wants, because he wasn't captured anymore. However, he has to address what's happening to him right now. There is a player that's engaging him, so that has to become part of his story, his arc. They're crossing paths. The Instigator could have submitted, I want to ignore him and take care of this, and this, and this. You can do that, but if his character is going after you, he just has he'll have a submission that's all about dismantling you. And if you don't have anything to defend against that by way of narrative in your submission, again, I'm going to make decisions on your behalf that can be good or bad, because the player engaging you may have thought so many things through. And I will try to think things through, but I might not be able to think it through as best as you can. Honestly, I'm not really going to go that hard in trying to defend your character if the opponent fully fleshed out everything he wants to do to you, and I think it's cool. That's good for the story. So I'm going to honor someone who actually spent time on handling their current situation, as opposed to someone who wants to just get to some event that they think that their character would go to and ignore their current situation. But I'm not going to make you go out like a bitch either. But funny that in this situation, it's that, except flipped. So if you're going to engage someone and go after a character, I'm going to zero in on that. So you need to make sure that you follow through. I didn't get a submission from Lord Bayrinth. So Lord Bayrinth's action defaulted to the last thing I remember the player wanting to do, which was take out the head of the Survey Day and usurp the Survey Day. So Lord Bayrinth's goal was to take out the Instigator like planned. And so I just thought of all the things that, as best as I can, his character is not the most offensive character. He's more of a mastermind. But the Instigator had a lot of advantages, as you saw in the video. One, he created all the weapons and the technology the Survey Day use. He is a master of science, and he's a user of magic. So more than likely there was a connection between the magic properties and within the technology that he created it within himself. So that's how he was able to gain an advantage in the upper hand by sabotaging their weaponry, their ships, and so on and so forth. Not on top of that, the Instigator also is the creator of the Ichromancer. The Ichromancer is a machine the Instigator created to keep the operation going and to bring life into these people so they can continue his work. He turned that shit off. He turned the Ichromancer off. He said, I'm not even gonna fight y'all. I don't have to. I'm just gonna take all your souls back, give me that, and I'm gonna put it into something that can help me, like this base. Hello? I didn't inquire for health insurance, Tom. Damn it, Tom. That dude's name was Tom. I think it was an automated. By the way, there's a character that Marshall submitted. I can't say our first artificial character, but it's an NPC that's an android. And the acronym of his name is Tom. Go to the wiki and check that out. Matter of fact, I'll probably post it. But yeah, so the Ichromancer snatches the souls back. He reallocates those souls into the base and powers it back up. So the cult got wiped out. Plain and simple. And the summary sheet is viewable, so you can actually see these things on paper. By the way, did you like the presentation? That's just something I'm experimenting with. I'm gonna tighten it up. I like that. I like that. I don't know. I hope you like it, because I'm gonna go in that direction. See how pretty I can make it. By the way, I'm gonna be doing some drawing. Trying to practice my drawing. I'm gonna draw Nam Ki. I'm gonna draw Nam Ki. Yeah. Or attempt to. I'm gonna try to draw Nam Ki. Nam Ki sent me a concept picture of her character. I can't get that out of my head, so it was just perfect with the kind of person she described. It's probably gonna look like that. I wish it would look like that. But anyway, so the Instigator defeats Lord Bayrinth. Now, notice that the Instigator did not maim Lord Bayrinth. And there's a reason for that. Again, the Lord Bayrinth did not submit anything, but I still wanted to do good by him by not making him make stupid decisions. Which is hard, right? Because what is a stupid decision? You know, anything is possible, and his character is pretty damn tactical, so I just don't know what he could have done against the Instigator. I would have liked to see what he would have. That's probably why he didn't send shit in. He's probably like, fuck. He was probably like, fuck. How am I supposed to fight the Instigator? I'm gonna tell, damn. That's how much of a mastermind he is, that he was able to convince the Instigator's children into fighting their father. Bite the hand. Bite the hand that feeds you work. Damn it. The reason the Instigator didn't kill him is because in the Instigator's submission, he said that he would offer Lord Bayrinth a deal. And I ain't making decisions for nobody like that. God damn it. That's why you gotta be there. Also remember too, if you don't submit anything, I tend to, if you submit something, the last thing you did, I tend to tie it up and you'll be where you left off. I'll try not to put you in an area that's hostile. That's why a lot of the times your character goes unconscious or gets displaced. If you're in a situation, it's going down and you're done. I want you to be able to choose between a story option and a event option at the beginning of every phase. But sometimes you end up in a situation that you have to stay in for a couple episodes. Just so I don't have to make decisions for you. But in this situation, in a critical situation, Lord Bayrinth was going to be offered some deals, and I'm not doing that. So I stuck to what his last plan that he told me was. Because what if his goal was not to accept any deals, and he don't do that or something? He just wants to kill the Instigator. I'm not going to do that. So, he could have said, I'm going to pretend to do this for X amount of time, and then I have a lot to think about. Instead of a deal being offered, the Instigator just let him live because he knows that Monster Island is likely going to kill him. And that was my reasoning for justifying him leaving. The Instigator has better things to do. He knows what Lord Bayrinth is capable of, and he's not capable of anything at this point in time on an island, and the only way off of the island is the ship. So he's leaving him for the island to kill as opposed to killing him himself. The Instigator, again, is very complex. He's maybe not he granted his submission in his bio says he's an evil mastermind. But he's not like gonna just rip your guts out, apparently. I'm learning this shit too. I thought he was evil. But he hasn't really done anything evil. And if you ask the player, he's a bit more complex than that. So he leaves him be. Speaking of leaving be, Myra, Myra's goal was to, her first goal was to reconnect with her network, her Atlas network, and meet up with some people. But her role failed. So I had to go off of the only thing that the player actually addressed in their submission is using the Instigator's ship to get off the island. Myra said she would leave the Instigator to deal with them and get off the island. I remember when that character submitted that. I know all of your characters to an extent. And then some bells went off, some flags went up when the character submitted that. I'm like, man, you're not going to help out with the Instigator? Because the first thing I thought of was Myra filling all these people up with her rage mist, and they all just kill each other. That's what I thought was going to happen. But no, Myra was like, I'm getting the feck out of there, and I'm going to connect with these people. I was like, oh shit. That's not only is that brave, but that's strange, because this is someone I thought you were going to be their apprentice. I thought you were going in the direction of helping this person and becoming their apprentice. He was going to give you some Takena. But no. And I know how important that ship is to the Instigator. That's the Instigator ship. And I'm like, he's just going to let Myra leave with it? So the Instigator was not aware. So that told me that they weren't working together.
The house of 1999 will be virtually maintenance-free. A central atmospheric system will maintain constant year-round temperatures and control humidity, bacteria, pollen, and dust. Clothing of the non-disposable...
This is a game, y'all. This is just a game. I enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy being in it. But it's a story, man. So, try to be really honest. And let's just have fun. So when I found out that the Instigator was not hip to the plan of the ship leaving, that immediately became a conflict. So it went from Myra and the Instigator versus Lord Bayrinth and his cult, or Lord Bayrinth, to the Instigator versus Myra versus Lord Bayrinth. Not the Instigator versus Myra. I rolled them two against each other. So the moment that she tried to leave on the ship, I rolled her objective, which was to leave on the ship. Actually, it was to do all that. But she failed the first part, which was leaving on the ship. That's the real current thing. That's the objective. If you're trying to do all that over there, reconnect, you got to get off the ship. You got to get off the island first. And that roll was failed, so she was stopped and stuck in the ship. And then I rolled the Instigator versus Bayrinth. Whereas if a player were to focus more on the situation, they could have provided details, some contingencies, And remember too, the details are yours to play with. I fill in gaps. The narrative is all yours. Even if it's not supported by your ability, Myra could have said, they're all distracted, and every time that the Instigator tries to stop me from leaving on the ship, one of the Survey Day cultists attack him to distract him. He's under attack that he can't even focus. You know what I mean? A little bit more in depth to give me things to consider. But I did give that to Myra as an advantage, is that everyone was distracted. I gave her a bonus for that, actually. So I do go to bat. Whenever I may sense an advantage that you may not have picked up on or included. But the Instigator isn't mad at Myra. The Instigator is a very complex person. So Myra's stuck on the ship. Lord Bayrinth gets left out on the island to die. The Instigator shoots her out of the fucking ship and tells her to survive the night. That's his way of saying, you have one more time to cross me. Now, it's unfortunate that Myra is in this situation. She may not even ever wanted to work with the Instigator, but she got kidnapped by Anarchy at the end of the first season, which kept her safe from erasure and in Anarchy 12's in his inventory. And then she escaped with the Instigator because he captured the Instigator too. So you see how just you never know where you're going to end up. So don't think too far ahead. This is a new story. You provided the characters. This is a new story we're making. It's cool to have a little back history. But just be a little light on that with, where you plan to grow. You know, I have a character, for example, I talk with Makai, Void Makai, all the time. His character is all about Chi Beast, the Chi Beast gods, and obtaining them. Don't think too far ahead. It's cool if that's your goal. But if you die in the next episode, then I don't know. It depends how much energy you want to put into just imagining things, but I'm rooting for y'all. But anyway, Myra gets shot out onto the island, and she has to survive the night. So Myra is on the island. I'll probably come up with an event for you involved with the island, unless you do decide that you want to leave with the Instigator. If you don't want to join him or leave with the Instigator, I think I'm gonna come up with a really cool event that's focused on that island next phase, to kind of get you to kind of bounce you back into things, because you know you ended up in this situation. I don't want you to have to do 2 story phases in a row unless you want to. You tried to get out of the situation. I commend you for that. So for that, I'm going to put an event around that island, or you can leave with the Instigator and do what and help him. But if you feel like that's too much of a risk, you want to stay on the island, don't worry. We're going to have an event phase, so you can kind of have an opportunity to raise your rank if you want to. Remember, raising your rank, that's not always the best way to go. Remember, in the finale, I'm drawing together some really big things. I'm gonna tie it all together into this. Think of Infinity War. The more you are involved with something that I can turn into something big, the more likely you'll be in the finale with it playing a big part and not just be like a side character. So story phases, story options are good. They're good. But I don't want anybody to do a story option if they don't want to in a row. I'll take care of you. So you're on the island. The Instigator's next goal, at the end of his submission, he said, and then after all that's taken care of, he's going back to Haven to meet up with someone. So you can consider that done. You know, the Instigator, you're free to go wherever you want to go, because there's nothing stopping you. You have your ship. You can just leave whenever, and if Myra wants to go with you, she can go with you. At the end of the episode, the Instigator understands that he doesn't have the cult anymore. They betrayed him because of Lord Bayrinth. There's cult members out there spread out, but the main force, the brains, they're wiped out. So there's stragglers out there. I'm tired of the cult, to be honest. So when the Instigator was like, if Bayrinth doesn't want to agree to my terms, I'm gonna wipe them out. I was like, yes. Get rid of these motherfuckers, because they served their purpose. I wanted to introduce a major antagonist to everyone, and be the vehicle that, because you know the Instigator needs footmen to do the experiments, and that's who the Servidae were. So thank you, R-Type X, for creating that cool ass name. I think that's Latin for serving God or some shit. Thank you, Makai, for the concept of Takena. Takena is actually a combination. The name is done by Makai, but the actual magic type, how it's all about dark soul energy and all that stuff, and the tendril, that's like a combination of, I think, something Ivan submitted. Or did he had something to do with the Ichromancer? Who created the Ichromancer? If you created the Ichromancer or contributed to that, can you comment? I'm just curious. Anyway, he doesn't have a cult anymore. And he realizes that this experiment is sabotage. It's done. Okay? It's done. People after me. God, damn Death Tube unleashed stole all my information with his experiment. Damn it, it's time for change. Now, that last cycle, the whole goal was to have you mutate and evolve through chaos. So the Instigator created Advocate, which is a G-type that can multiply endlessly and is capable of influence. Check out the Advocate's character page if it's still there. I think I deleted it. But anyway, the Advocate is a night skin. Whenever I say night skinned, that means dark blue skin. They're a night skinned race. They're a race. They were actually they were like half of the population of Gamma Haven. There were so many of them. They made up like half. And they each had their own mind, but they had a hive mind, and that can just turn on whenever Advocate needed it to be turned on. But other than that, they lived separate lives and they supported each other. It was like one person, but many. But they were consciously, they were the same, but identity wise, they saw themselves as different people. And Advocate, they were all Advocate. They had different names that were all amalgamations of the word Advocate and initials. And they all took their own jobs and lived their own lives. They all supported Advocate as well when he was running for governor of Haven. And that's how Advocate operated, because he had the population and he corrupted the population, because each Advocate had the ability to influence people and put thoughts into their head. A lot of mutants killed other mutants because they thought that one mutant killed their parents, when it was really just a seed that Advocate planted in their head, thinking that your target killed your parents, and that's why there was anger. So they were designed to create chaos and affect the tank. Advocate is essentially, if you have a fish tank, Advocate was the water. And that's how the Instigator utilized Advocate and its ability to shape culture. So the Instigator brought Advocate back out. If you remember, I think it was in the beginning of season 1, Advocate first appears. They all appear walking out of the waters and walking into Haven. So they're of the water. That's just where he has something to do with how they're created. But the Instigator summons or activates, brings back Advocate. But this time, it not so much focused on the paradigm of the previous cycle, but he turns it to force, and that could mean many things. We'll find out. But Advocate, we see, comes out, and that's all the army the Instigator needs. Congratulations to the Instigator for being successful. Go ahead and check out the summary sheet to see your rewards, if any. And stay tuned for the next episode, which is coming out very, very, very soon. Also, stay tuned for a video about some things I'm doing with live streams. Peace and love.